The latest tech,
People love iPhone, and it's an important part of our daily lives.
interviews,
You see far too many products that come on the market that you look at that you say, was a blind person ever even consulted for something like this?
accessibility,
The most interesting thing over the last couple of years is the emphasis on gaming and accessibility.
This is Double Tap TV.
Hey everyone, welcome to the programme and a very interesting and informative show lined up for you today. I am Stephen Scott.
And I am Mark Aflalo, and interesting, Stephen, I think is definitely quite the understatement here. You see, I got an email a while back from the PR, the Public Relations Department over at Apple, asking me if I wanted to speak to the developer of an app designed to help with anxiety, depression, and panic attacks. And why, you ask? Well, because they added some new features to make the app more accessible, and that is voice-guided programs. So naturally, we said, absolutely. So today, we're going to introduce you at home to an app designed to do just that, and we're going to meet the developer herself.
Sounds very interesting. And this is something which I think a lot of people are going to benefit from learning about today, because you know what? Anxiety is something that really does affect all of us, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember one moment in time when one moment where I had a panic attack, and it happened in just obviously never the right moment. It was right before a broadcast was about to start, and something wasn't working, and, you know, normally I'm able to troubleshoot that kind of stuff pretty easily, and I don't know why the pressure was on in that particular moment, but again, you can't control these things, and they tend to kind of creep up and just happen without you even understanding what's happening. And that's exactly what happened to me. And thankfully, I had some backup in place and someone was able to take over for me. But I remember I had to exit the actual situation as quickly as I could. I realized something was going on. I didn't know what it was. And I sat in my car for about a half hour. And my wife almost had to kind of talk me down. I'm like, because I didn't understand what was going on. And it was really debilitating. And I bring this up because, Stephen, you know, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, it can hit anybody at any point in time. And I think that's more prevalent, especially over the past couple of years with the COVID-19 pandemic. So this brings up an interesting question that I've got for you. And I'd hate to say it's controversial, but I think there's going to be many opinions on this matter. And that is, you know, is anxiety, is depression, is it an illness? Is it a disability, so to say? It's hard to really put my finger on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, of course, depression and anxiety are illnesses, yes, and they definitely are medical conditions. In terms of disability, though, I think I would say more disabling is the reality for many people who live with anxiety. And it is interesting, you know, I've never lived with depression, but one thing I have had are bouts of anxiety. And like you said, during the pandemic, a lot of us figured out how susceptible we were and are to anxiety attacks. In fact, a lot of us who, you know, go on with our daily lives and who don't even think of ourselves as anxious people, suddenly we're feeling very anxious and very paranoid about the world around us. And for good reason, right? I mean, let's be honest, we were nervous to be around each other. We were nervous to be beside each other. So even on that base level, we were all very nervous and very concerned, and it did bring about anxiety. And of course, there's another wave that sweeps through our world right now, which is social media. And that can make a lot of people very anxious as well. And you know, I imagine younger people today feeling very anxious in ways that perhaps you and I, Mark, didn't experience when we were at school, when we were at college. You know, we didn't have that level of scrutiny on us, as is the case for most younger kids today. So anxiety lives in many, many forms. And that in and of itself, I'm not sure I would classify as a disability. Some might argue that, but I would certainly say it is disabling and can have a massive impact. I know from my own experience of just getting out the front door, sometimes that alone, someone with low vision, that can be the biggest challenge, just getting out the front door. You know, and as I've lost more vision over the years, I've become way more unlikely to want to do things. And even recently, you know, forcing myself to just get over the front door and go to the store was challenging. So, you know, that alone can be a huge achievement in someone's life, whereas, you know, to most people, they would just take that for granted. But I think more and more of us these days are starting to realise that, and certainly the conversations like this, you know, two grown-up guys having a conversation about this, maybe a few years ago, Mark, we wouldn't have had this conversation because it would have maybe felt a bit taboo, a little bit inappropriate, maybe even a little bit emasculating. Whereas we can actually do that now, and that's a good thing. So, you know, it's really important we do this, and more of this needs to happen.
If there was an app that could help you with panic attacks and anxiety, would you lean on something like that?
I'd be very interested to try it. I mean, I'd really want to know what the app could offer because, look, they see that no one's done this. And they say there's an app for everything, right? Well, yeah, okay. So I want to know what this could achieve and how it could help. So I'm really intrigued today to find out what this app is all about and how it will actually work and benefit me because, I'd be keen to try something like this.
Well, let's dive right in after a quick break here on Double Tap TV.
You're watching Double Tap TV. Get involved. Follow us at Double Tap On Air or email us feedback@doubletaponair.com. Double Tap TV will be right back. You're watching Double Tap TV.
Hey guys, welcome back to Double Tap TV. Back on the show, and Mark, our guest, is standing by.
Yes, indeed. Ania Vysotska is the founder of an app available for Android and iPhone called Rooted, and that's spelled ROOTD. Ania, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Ania, tell us about the app Rooted. Where did this idea come from? Where did it all begin?
So I was in my final year of university when I experienced a panic attack, and it felt like it came out of nowhere. I had never experienced that before. I didn't quite understand what panic attacks were. And so it set me on this really difficult journey of navigating that and dealing with the debilitating effects. So it wasn't until I really collected the resources that were helpful for me that I thought, wow, this should really be an app so that it's more accessible for others. And that's how Rooted was started.
And yeah, I got to ask you something. How were you able to even identify that you were having a panic attack in the first place? Did you see others go through it? What was that like?
I basically went to a doctor because I didn't know what was happening. I thought maybe I was having a heart attack or something really bad was happening. And then I was told that what it was a panic attack. And later on, I realized that this is actually extremely common. People think that they are having a heart attack or even dying, and they go to their doctors and they realize that it's a panic attack. And so, that there is a lot of misinformation, and maybe knowing about it earlier, I wouldn't have been so alarmed.
And yeah, I got to ask you something. How were you able to even identify that you were having a panic attack in the first place? Did you see others go through it? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great to go get checked out by a doctor anyway and go through checkups, make sure that your heart is doing great. Then you'll have more peace and calm knowing that that's not the issue. So with me, what it was a lot of shaking, trembling, racing heart, racing thoughts. The mental side of it was really difficult, kind of doomsday thoughts, really dark, negative, feeling like something is extremely wrong, but I can't identify it and I don't know what it is. A lot of people also get trouble seeing, blurred vision. They'll get trouble breathing, hyperventilating, stomach issues. It's really the physical and the mental really do blur together in these cases. And it's a lot of unpleasant situations that you wouldn't wish on anyone. But it's always good to go get a checkup with a doctor and make sure that they can assess what it is for you anyway.
So how do you take that experience and make it a roadmap to starting an app? I assume there's a lot of research that goes into creating an app like this. What did you do?
Yeah, for me, I was in university when this happened, so I had access to libraries and different resources online. I really started at the core of researching just what it is. And there's some work by Dr. Claire Weeks. She was the one who really started looking into panic attacks and describing them as something that is not something that needs to be as debilitating as it was for me. And just even seeing her words on that was a source of relief. Other articles, just heading to Google Scholar, different articles kind of sharing what they were. They were written in a very medical and formal way as they were studies on this, but I still found the core facts to be quite comforting and different CBT modules and learnings as well. So I sort of just collected those and some resonated, some didn't. And so it was a really interesting process of figuring out what did resonate and then later collecting all that did resonate to put that into Rooted.
Now, I don't know if this is a common misconception or not, and you can, by all means, tell me that I'm wrong or tell me that you don't necessarily have the expertise to answer this, and that's fine. You can have a panic attack outside of any kind of underlying condition, right?
Well, like you said, I'm not a doctor or a therapist. In my experience, that having general anxiety can sometimes manifest into a panic attack. You're right that some people might have a single panic attack and then not experience it again. Whereas others, if they have a panic attack, it might transform into anxiety disorder or panic disorder. And yeah, there's different underlying reasons for that in different people, but all of us have a healthy dose of anxiety here and there. It's when it becomes debilitating or it starts impacting our life, that's when we need to address it.
So let's talk about the app, and I'll give you a use case. I've had one panic attack that I'm aware of in my life. I had to take myself out of the situation and really just take the time to calm myself down. How could I have used Rooted in a case like that?
Yeah, so if you're actually using Rooted, you could be in the midst of a panic attack or keen to kind of learn what anxiety and panic attacks are and how you can work through them and mitigate them in the short term and the long term. So we've got an actual panic attack tool that will help stop a panic attack in its tracks as it's happening to you. It's an interactive tool, so it's based on how you're feeling in the moment. We also have different lessons on actually understanding what anxiety is, so sort of the things that we just talked about, right? What is a panic attack? Why might it be happening to you? And how do we get started in healing that? And then there's lessons on what to do in the short term. So thinking things like diet and exercise and how we can work to incorporate lifestyle changes to mitigate some of these sensations. And then also the long term. And that's more like, how do we even talk about ourselves to ourselves? Right? Because people with anxiety and panic attacks, they happen to often have a lot of issues with self-esteem after time or over time. And, this can really change the way that we approach ourselves. So it's got all those different lessons. And then it also has a deep breathing tool. It's got guided visualizations. And I say visualizations as opposed to meditation because for folks with anxious thoughts, sometimes it's difficult to sit in silence. So we offer visualizations as in you're constantly being given something to think about and you're prompted and guided quite a bit. And then journaling, a check-in tool, and a deep breathing tool.
Wow, I could have used this app many times in my life. What has feedback been like from users? It's always important to get, I imagine. And I wonder if you've had any medical professionals go hands-on and give you feedback.
Totally, yeah. So by far the coolest part has been the user reviews and users sharing how they've been using Rooted to go back to work, go back to school. We hear from people all over the world, which is interesting because when I first made it, it was just in English. Now it's in 10 different languages. So, that feedback from around the world was just so interesting because sometimes culturally people experience different things, but it seems like panic attacks, unfortunately, are pretty universal. And then, lots of medical opinions. Doctors and therapists are actually some of our top referrers, which is pretty cool. It's just been, I think the feedback is the coolest part about Rooted, really. It really resonated. Sorry, but it resonated when I didn't go into it with this business mindset where I was like, okay, I'm serving people. I need to figure out what they need and then I'm going to create it. I went into it more so by creating something that worked for me. And so it's just been such a pleasure to see that it really resonates with others too.
Our guest this week is a creator of an app called Rooted, Ania Vysotska. We're going to take a quick break here and come back with more here on Double Tap TV.
Can't get enough Double Tap TV? Subscribe to the podcast and get your fill of Double Tap every day. Visit doubletaponair.com and follow us now. Double Tap TV will be right back. You're watching Double Tap TV.
Back on the show talking about Rooted today, an app designed to help manage anxiety, depression, and panic attacks.
And our guest this week, Stephen, is Ania Vysotska, the creator of the app Rooted. Ania, how do you keep the app up to date, and how do you take feedback from users and actually put it to good use?
Yeah, so feedback is probably the biggest source of inspiration. We get to hear from different users all around the world. One example is, how we just recently added in audio into the lessons because there was quite a bit of text. And so for me personally, I learned by reading. I learn in silos, but that's not how everybody learns. And so it's been super cool to hear from different folks to just learn how they experience the app and then what we can do to make it even more accessible. There are lots of updates. We're constantly upgrading, adding in more content.
Now, talk to me about the process of creating an app, regardless of what it is. What was that process like? Because, okay, so you had the idea, let's create an app. Did you go and learn to code yourself? Did you have friends who were in that business? Did you farm it out overseas? What was the experience like?
Process was long and slow and a little painful. I had no technical background. I used to do like web development, so that's about it. Very different than app development, though. Very different. And so what I did was I went to an agency. They gave me a quote. I realized very quickly that I cannot afford that. And I ended up just kind of keeping at it, working to really reduce the scope of what a developer would have to do just in terms of feedback. Like I noticed that the agency, part of what they did was help create the wireframes and help do the design. And I was like, okay, I need to learn how to do that myself at least, even though I'm not going to be doing the coding. So all of that really did help with like cutting down the time and scope of the developer work. And I've learned a ton over the years, but you know, it's still extremely challenging. I ended up working with a student developer for the first version of Rooted. And it was great because otherwise I couldn't have done that, right? I needed to work with somebody that was also learning and experimenting and willing to do it with me. But it also meant there's a ton of bugs. The app was laggy and there's a lot of user feedback that was like, oh, this really resonates, but like I need it to work better. And so that was actually a good point for me to realize that, oh, it's good enough that people want to use it, even though there's lags and bugs. Like that's a good sign. But then I needed to quickly address those lags and bugs. So yeah, it's been a long process. I'm still working with local people here. I've had overseas contributors, but mostly I'm working with Canadians. And yeah, it's like a very, very Canadian app.
I love it. Very, very Canadian app. Talk to us about accessibility for a moment here. Was the process of making the app easy to consider accessibility? Did you even know how to do it or have accessibility on your mind?
Yeah, so candidly, no, because again, I didn't have a target demographic in mind. It was more so, okay, this is what I needed. Let's see if others needed that too. And then that's why it's been so cool to learn from users, to learn about what they need. And I think there's still more work to do. I think audio has been really one of the key things that I've learned just hearing from, you know, thankfully with Rooted, we have over 2.4 million downloads. So the user feedback we get thousands of it per month. So we do get a wide perspective on what issues people are coming across. And so audio is probably the key thing. The other thing is making sure that if people want to use larger text, that it's still fitting in the screen and they can still use the app nicely. I think there's still more work to do, and I'd love to learn even more. I guess I just didn't come at it from that business perspective of, oh, we need to increase accessibility for business reasons. It was more organic. It was users really providing their feedback and then us wanting to make it accessible because, again, panic attacks being universal, the goal is to really make it so that they aren't in the situation I was in when I had a panic attack and I had no family doctor. I was on student loans. I couldn't afford professional help. So I really want to make something that people can use. And that means making it for different learning styles and making it more accessible. So I'd like to keep growing in that.
Where do you see the future of your app going?
Yeah, I'd love for Rooted to be the app for panic attacks and anxiety, as it is already ranking #1 today. But I'd love it for it to be something that people know of, that they know of as a resource. Today they're learning about it in the App Store. I'd love for them to know about it from other resources, and just to really know that there is an option, that you don't have to be suffering so much in that moment.
And yeah, it's been great to share your story with our audience. Hopefully we can help spread the word for you. Where can people find the app? Because Rooted is not spelt the way you'd expect it.
Yes. So it is ROOTD. And admittedly, I could not afford the TED at the time. So that's how that started. But it's like being rooted in the ground like a tree. So if you think of a large oak tree during a storm, they're not going to topple over. They have those roots that ground them. They might sway a bit, but they'll be fine. That's the goal with Rooted users, is when those feelings hit, when those sensations hit from a panic attack, you are going to experience them, but ultimately you're okay. And Rooted is there to guide you with that and help you. So it's available in the app stores and it's available online. You can find the website at rooted.io.
Ania Vysotskas, thank you so much for joining us here at Double Tap TV.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So, Stephen, you see, there's an app for everything, isn't there?
Yep, literally an app for everything. But yeah, look, you know what? This is great. And I'm so glad we're able to talk about an app that can really make a difference in people's lives. And I think the fact is, and always should be the case with these types of applications, they must be developed with people who've actually gone through this themselves. You know, that is something that is brilliant here. It's so great to hear Ania talk about the story of the app and the journey of it, and it's something that I will definitely be downloading after the show. I want to try this out.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback, and you at home, if you're looking for the app, again, it's Rooted, R-O-O-T-D. I am Mark Aflalo on behalf of Stephen Scott and our guest Ania Vysotska. Thank you for being with us this week. We'll catch you on our next episode of Double Tap TV.
Thanks for watching Double Tap. Send us your feedback to feedback@doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. Hosted by Mark Aflalo in Montreal and Stephen Scott in Glasgow. Producer Mark Aflalo. Editing and graphics Jordan Steves. Voiceover Anna Vicino. Social media Wendy Kaufman. Integrated Described Video Specialist M. Williams. Supervising Producer Michelle Dudas. Manager Programming AMI TV Lizanne Gagne. Director Content Development and Production Karen Nye. VP Content Development and Operations John Melville. President and CEO David Arrington. Copyright 2023 Accessible Media Inc.
An AMI original production.